Hello, hello, and welcome back for another adventure in the cookie jar. Today we're doing recipes 7 and 8 out of the Gingerbread Cookie Murder. So what I mean by that is we are taking one base dough, dividing it in half, and getting 2 different cookies out of it. For one half, we'll be getting the chewy coconut cranberry cookies, and with the other half, we'll be getting a coconut and chocolate cookie. So, this one. So what we're going to need for both of these, now the actual recipe in the book calls for you to preheat your oven to 350 and then 1.5 cups melted butter, 3 sticks, 1.5 cups of white sugar, 1.5 cups of brown sugar, 1.5 teaspoons of baking powder, 1.5 teaspoons of baking soda, half a teaspoon of salt, 2 teaspoons of vanilla extract, 3 large eggs beaten, 3 cups quick cooking oatmeal, 3 cups of all-purpose flour. Now here is where it deviates, because with what is written here is 3 cups of sweetened dried cranberries and 3 cups flaked coconut. But if you're making both recipes, at the end of the book right here, it says you can make 2 totally different types of cookies from one batch. Here's how. Divide your dough into 2 equal parts before you add the cranberries to coconut. Add 1.5 cups sweetened dried cranberries and 1.5 cups coconut to the first part of your dough. Stir them in, bake according to the directions. This will yield 5 dozen chewy coconut cranberry cookies. Add 1.5 cups of miniature chocolate chips and 1.5 cups coconut to the other half of the dough. Stir them in, bake according to the directions above. This will give you 5 dozen chewy coconut chocolate chip cookies. You can also add a cup of chopped nuts to either half, or both if you wish for an even chewier texture. So in total, you are going to want 3 cups of coconut divided, and then you're going to want 1.5 cups of cranberries and 1.5 cups of chocolate chips for making the split recipe. Which I would, because why would you want 10 dozen cookies in one cut when you can have 5 dozen of 2? But it's a pretty simple recipe. You're melting your butter, you're letting it cool. It has you mix all of your dry ingredients and then add in the eggs, and then when the butter's cooled you add that in, and then it's the oatmeal. And it does have a note: the reason for adding dry ingredients like oatmeal and flour in increments is so that they won't spill over the sides of the bowl when you stir them in. It seems like more work, but believe me, cleaning flour off the counter and floor isn't any fun. And then you're adding the flour in increments, and then you're gonna divide it. Coconut cranberries, mix them in. Coconut chocolate, mix them in. It does say if you're using an electric mixer, you may want to finish the rest mixing by hand. Coconut tends to stick to the beaters. It says dough may get quite stiff. If your arm is getting sore from stirring, just get in there with your impeccably clean hands and mix up with your fingers. You're going to want to spray your cookie sheets with Pam or another nonstick cooking spray. Line them with parchment paper. For the first time in these book series, it references silicone baking mats. They measure them out in a 2 teaspoon scooper. 12 to a standard sheet. They say they do not spread out too much in the oven. 350, 8 to 10 minutes, cool for 2. Same directions for the chocolate chips. It does have a note. I always measure out my flaked coconut and then use the food processor with the steel blade to chop it a little finer. That way it doesn't get stuck between your teeth. You can also measure it, lay it out on a cutting board, and chop it in finer pieces with a sharp knife. So everything's ready. Let's get started. This is everything we're going to need for both of these cookies recipes today. I cannot keep that book open for the life of me, so we're going to go old school and hang it up. But first thing we want to do is take our sugars, the brown and the white, and let them hang out and play. Next, we're adding the baking powder, the baking soda, the salt, and lastly the vanilla. And we're going to let that mix for a second. Now we're going to add in the eggs. And now we're going to drizzle in the butter. Next we have the oatmeal going in a little bit at a time. And then the last shared ingredient, the flour, again, little bits at a time. So now is where we divide the dough into 2 parts, which is a lot gooier than I thought it would be, especially since it said it would be stiff. But just give it our best and try to eyeball it into the first half. We have coconut and cranberries. So with the cranberry and the coconut, what we're gonna do is just give it another final stir. And we're gonna take our handy dandy cookie scooper. Just gonna start flopping them down. That is the first batch of these. We'll skip up the rest and we'll see how many we get. So for this cookie, we got 51, which is 4 and 3 extra. 4 dozen plus 3. These are the cranberry and coconut cookies. So these are the Chewy cranberry coconut cookies. They're definitely chewy for sure. That cranberry, a nice tartness that sets them apart from normal cookies. It's actually like a really nice surprise of a cookie, and they didn't take very long. And depending on how you make the batches, you need to get 2 batches of about 5, or So doing the math, we had 51 of the cranberry cookies, and we'll end up with 65 of the chocolate cookies. So in total from this recipe, if you did it just one way or the other, you're looking at about 116 cookies, which is 9 dozen plus 8. So just under 10, which is the yield amount the book said. So decent amount altogether. I personally prefer halving it, just because you get 2 for the price of 1 kind of thing. But the cranberry ones by themselves are really good enough to do a whole batch. But next week, you will be seeing the results of the chewy chocolate chip cookies. Chewy coconut chocolate chip cookies. So if you're interested in seeing how those ones turned out, join us next week. Bye, guys.